Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom!
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
I am the law.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show. I'm your host Stuart and I'm also joined by Andy.
Good evening and welcome.
Coming up we have two films to review. They are...
we have the, not remake, but the new version of the comic 2000 AD's character Dredd brought to the screen in Dredd 3D. And we have the story of bootleggers in the 1930s America, Lawless.
Yeah, on top of that we have the usual things in the movie news, but let's kick things off with the box office top 10.
Starting at number 10 with Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Dog Days.
Yeah, we've still not seen this. Probably glad that it's the last week. It's definitely the last week it's going to be in the chart. I doubt we'll see it in the chart next week. It follows the same formula as the other Diary of a Wimpy Kid film, so it's another one of those ones. If you've seen any of them in the series, you'll have probably seen this, and you can guess what happens in it.
A wimpy kid ends up having a boring thing. Turns out that at the end he gets really happy and figures out what is going on and with himself.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Number 9, Keith Lemon, the film, which I know you haven't seen, so I'm just going to say worst movie of this year as far as I'm concerned. And I'm looking forward to what you have to say when it comes out on DVD.
It should be out, well, I wonder if they'll fast track it for it to be released at Christmas.
I doubt it. I mean, that's a bit quick even for that, but
it could happen though.
Then you'll be reviewing it for a Christmas special. We can definitely see what's in the worst film of the year for the whole year then between us.
I will have to see it before then though. I will have to. Yeah,
that means you're going to have to go and see it. You're going to have to actually go and sit in a cinema, presumably by yourself because it's not doing brilliantly, to see the film. And number 8 is The Expendables 2.
Yeah, which I keep seeing week in, week out. It is the dumbest film I've seen this year. Honestly, it's really, really dumb. The action scenes are perfectly fine. The shootouts, etc., they're done pretty decent enough. They're better than the first one. It's slightly better than the first one. It's just that I found the first one to be a nothing film. It just had nothing going for it whatsoever. At least this one has a few decent action scenes in it. But honestly, it is the most brain-deaded movie I've seen this year.
I'll be interested to see what you make of that after you've seen Keith Lemon the film, because that kind of makes Expendables 2 look like Oscar material. Number 7 is The Bourne Legacy.
Yeah, I keep on again. We repeat ourselves week in, week out. The Bourne Legacy. If you're treated like a separate Bourne film rather than a part of the Bourne trilogy, then you might like it slightly more. It's just a very bog standard average action film. Jeremy Renner is pretty decent as in the film. It doesn't do anything different. It doesn't sort of like reinvent in a way this spy action genre like the Bourne trilogy originally did. And that's what was so special about it. It sort of like added an injection in it that was needed because the Bond films were going downhill, and so these came out, the Bourne films, and it brought them back up a bit, and the Bond movies started to copy them, so it must have been doing something right. This one felt like a step in the wrong direction.
And number 6, the movie that we really can't say anything more about, Dark Knight Rises, so I think we'll go straight on to number 5, The Possession.
Yeah, again, it's another very safe film. It follows, again, the typical storyline of somebody who's been possessed. In this case, it's a 12-year-old girl who finds this box at a car boot sale. She ends up opening it, and slowly she gets possessed by the demon that's inside of this box. And the father has to try and obviously find some way of getting this demon out of his daughter. It It's not scary at all. It's presented by Sam Raimi, and it was interesting the fact that during the publicity of this film, he did say the reason why he latched onto it more is because it had a more human element to it, and it had more of a scare to it. Well, it didn't. So if you've seen these kind of films before, then you know what to expect. It's nothing special, but it's okay. It's better than some of the films that have been out earlier this year, like The Devil Inside, which is god awful.
And number 4 is the film that's in the runnings for the funniest film of the year, as far as we're concerned, Ted.
Yeah, 28 million. It's done brilliant at the box office. It's like The Dark Knight Rises now. I don't know how much more we can see about it that's new.
Okay, I'll move on quickly then to Brave at number 3.
Yeah, it's not a Brave film. It's DreamWorks animation film. It's okay. The animation is breathtaking, but what do you expect from DreamWorks? Because they always do hit it out the park when it comes to CGI animation. They are the best
Pixar.
studio.
You're not.
Did
You
I
said
say DreamWorks? Damn,
Yes.
why have I got DreamWorks? I know the reason why I've got DreamWorks on my mind. I was just looking over the list that DreamWorks threw out with all the films that they're doing in the next 5 years. There's like 3 How to Train Your Dragon or something. But yeah, back onto Brave. Pixar film. Yeah, Pixar know what to do when it comes to CGI animation, and they're brilliant at it. It's just the film itself is just a very simple storyline, and it doesn't try anything brave.
At number 2 is new entry for The Watch.
I haven't seen this. I didn't want to see this.
Yeah, I kind of wish I hadn't seen it. It's a very below average, very unfunny. I don't think I laughed once. I think I sniggered once at one of the jokes. Everyone is wasted in it. Ben Stiller is just awful in it. Vince Vaughn is really awful in it. And I keep going to say Seth Rogen. It's not Seth Rogen. It is
Jonah Hill.
Yes, Jonah Hill. I keep getting his. I always. It's annoying. But he's just really doing his same typical gross out jokes that aren't really funny or gross out, particularly in this film. And Richard Ayoade, what was he thinking? I mean, just why? Honestly, it's just painful. It's horrible. It's not bad. It's just unfunny for a comedy. Number 1, highest new entry this week, Total Recall.
Which, in a way, we're sort of happy about the fact that Total Recall has gone in at number 1, even though it didn't. I wouldn't have said it. Well, The Watch was released a couple of days before it, so you probably would have expected that to go to number 1. But I'm guessing word of mouth from people from seeing it that it's not very funny and it's awful, and so people have been going to see Total Recall more. Given that the 12 years probably helped it even more. So if it was a 15, I probably would have thought it wouldn't have gotten as much in the way of box office takings as it did.
The Watch was a 15, so
yeah, I know that.
Yeah, it may be aged out then, but I think in certain respects, certain parts of it, Total Recall really is pushing it for a 12 rating, and definitely not a below 12. It is a high end 12. There's certain things in it, and certain just the tone of it, which are just a bit too strong for a 12 really.
Do you know though if the BBFC actually cut anything from the film, or was it released uncut at 12/8?
No, it was released uncut. I did check into that on their site the other day, and it was released uncut, so it's not been edited.
It's very surprising, because I do agree with the fact that as a 12-year, it is it's pushing the boundary because we're going to review a film in the DVD and Blu-ray section called The Cold Light of Day, which over here on DVD it's been given a 15. And so that film does not need a 15 rated certificate in my eyes. It was fine with a 12. Speaking about The Cold Light of Day, though, it absolutely bombed at the US box office. It was released Friday.
I'm trying to remember. Just saying that now. You saying that now. I'm trying to remember if Cold Light of Day was a 12 or if it was a 15 in the cinema.
I thought it was a 12.
I think it was as well.
Yeah, so it's been given a 15.
I shall have to try and have a quick look at that.
Well, like I said, with The Cold Light of Day, just to sidetrack slightly, it bombed at the US box office, only going in at number 13 and taking just over $1 million, which is just nothing for the kind of film it is. But back on to Total Recall, it's nowhere near as good as the original Total Recall. I thought Colin Farrell was just a typical ordinary playing character. I liked the look of the film. It's got a very Blade Runner kind of futuristic look to it, so the look's nice. It's just a bit of an empty movie in my eyes.
Yeah, I think it's essentially I think it's a not bad film, and I mean that in the phrase "not bad," not as in it's a bad film or anything, but I just think it would have been anyone who's not seen or heard of the original will enjoy it more. But anyone who's seen the original will see it and think, yeah, it was okay, but the original was way better.
I agree with that, and I think that's the reason why it went for a 12-year certificate, because it was going for more of a teenage audience this time with this one. Right, movie news.
Starting off with a very sad piece of news, which broke literally within an hour of us finishing last week's show. News that Michael Clark Duncan, the actor who was nominated for his performance as death row inmate John Coffey in the Green Mile, has died, unfortunately. A statement was released last Monday that the actor was being treated in hospital for a heart attack he suffered on July 13th and never fully recovered, and then died on that day. He was aged only 54. Yeah,
it is sad news. The Green Mile is one of those brilliant films of his. I can't think of anything else that I've seen him in that I really enjoyed him in.
Well, I can think. I mean, he was in. I liked him. He was in Daredevil.
I didn't like Daredevil.
The Kingpin. I like Daredevil. I'm one of the people who did like Daredevil, and I liked him playing the Kingpin. I thought he was very good in it. I really liked him. He suited that role really well. So I mean, obviously there's Armageddon, which is a complete cheese fest, but he is memorable in that, and he has a few funny moments in it that really did stand out. So he is an actor that is really sorely going to be missed.
Definitely.
Daniel Craig has reportedly signed on for 2 more James Bond movies after Skyfall. The news broke on fansite MI6, which announced that the actor will return for the 24th and 25th entries in the series, which will mean that Craig will have appeared in at least one more Bond movie than his predecessor in the role, Pierce Brosnan.
And I couldn't care less.
You're not a Bond fan, are you?
I am not a Bond fan. I'm not even sure if I will be going to see Skyfall. At least I know you're going to see it, so at least I know it will be reviewed. But I'm not sure if I'm actually going to go see it myself, because I'm not a Bond fan at all.
I need to check and see if there's anything else out that weekend that is daring to go up against it, because it's going to get clobbered whatever anything does.
If it is, then I'll gladly go and see it.
And I'm going to hope it's something really bad then.
Oh God, no, please no. If it is something bad, I'll go and see Skyfall.
My final piece of news, which we're sort of glad to see back in the news stories. It hasn't been in there for a little while. Star Trek, the second Star Trek movie from J.J. Abrams, now has a full title, which is Star Trek Into Darkness. What do you have to say about
that? I like the fact that they didn't call it Star Trek 2. So I like that. And the problem is, though, isn't it getting done in 3D? So it'll be Star Trek Into Darkness 3D.
Oh yes, a dark film in 3D. Very brilliant idea. I was thinking they're going to do it like Star Trek: The Wrath of Star Trek 2.
Oh, that's hot. That's really bad. I like Star Trek Into Darkness. I don't like Star Trek Into the Wrath of Star Trek 2, or whatever you called it there.
I don't know. I'm just making a joke there, but I don't know if it's going to be the whole thing of them trying to do it as Star Trek Into Darkness, or if they're meaning it as Star Trek Into Darkness, as in you're making a trek into darkness. I don't know. I'm still not sure that I like it that much, because it's very you don't know what they mean by it. It's possibly that they've done it intentionally like that, and it has a double meaning, but who knows. On to your news stories. Yeah,
probably the director, which you don't know very much about. Eli Roth has confirmed that he's working with horror.
I know a fair amount of him. I just don't like him.
Well, Eli Roth has confirmed that he's working with horror director Ty West on his next film, The Sacrament. In a statement, Roth said, "We want to make this Ty's first mainstream movie without sacrificing the quality and unflinching horror of the subject matter." Now, do you know anything about Ty West?
No.
Well, he did a film called House of the Devil, and he also contributed to a movie that's coming out I think it's about a month's time, called VHS as well. He also did Frozen.
I know of VHS. I know of Frozen.
Yeah, so he's one of these directors. He also did The Innkeepers, which is one of my favourite horror films of this year. He's one of these directors who takes the film really slowly. So for the first 45, 50 minutes of the film, it's just like a build-up. And then the last half an hour is where he really goes to town and where it really goes insane. So it's interesting that he's teaming up with Eli Roth, because Eli Roth's style of movie is completely the opposite. Eli Roth just likes to throw everything at the screen. He's one of these directors.
He's going to be going the route of Guillermo del Toro and doing the the Wes Craven thing, and presented by Eli Roth. I bet he's going to have nothing to do with the film.
Well, he's producing it. He's definitely
exactly.
he's got a production role on it, and Ty West is going to direct it. I'll look forward to it because I like Ty West stuff, and Eli Roth's I don't mind actually.
Look out for his name after the words "presented by," or presents after, rather.
Well, he's done a few of them actually. Eli Roth presents.
Yeah, exactly.
According to the Hollywood Reporter, Universal Pictures are going ahead with a sequel to Safe House after the first film took $202 million at the worldwide box office. The only thing known about the sequel is that the original writer, David Guggenheim, will pen the script for the sequel. I love that name.
Okay, so they obviously can't bring back... We won't say who, but for anyone who hasn't seen it, but they obviously can't bring back every character that's in the film, because not every one of them made it to the end.
From what I read, a speculation bit I read is it could be a prequel.
No, I don't want that. I wouldn't mind a sequel with the characters that they have left and to introduce some new ones, because there is feasibly more to that film that it could go on. It's just it has to be more than there really was in the first film, because it was a wasted opportunity as it was.
Yeah, like we keep saying every single week, it's a very safe movie. The final piece of news story for this show is 20th Century Fox are in talk with Lucky Number 11 director Paul McGuigan to direct the Frankenstein revival. McGuigan. I've got it McGuigan, so McGuigan. To direct the Frankenstein revival after original director Sean Levy, who worked on Real Steel, had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. If McGuigan gets the job, then he will direct the script from Max Landis, who wrote the screenplay for Chronicle.
I think it's Paul McGuigan, because I'm sure if it's the same person I'm thinking it is, he directed a nice small budget film that I really like called Push, and there's a commentary on it. I'm sure he said his name in it. So
I'll stick by McGuigan, because I've got it down as McGuigan, so it looks like McGuigan to me until I hear what his name is.
But I'll gladly look into anything that he's working on, because after Push, he's got a decent style. He's got a really good directing skill to it. So hopefully he'll come up with something good. If it is the same person, if I'm not getting a name mixed up somewhere there.
You never know, it might be. Right, we're going to go to a break, and after the break we'll have our first review.
Kids, there's nothing more cool than listening to a podcast you like. But if someone podcasts in a place or in a way that you find unfunny, that's no good. So what do? First, you say, lol no. Second, you tell them to GTFO. Third, you get some Holocaust in your luggoles. And most importantly, you have to tell someone. Like your parents, your teacher, or a police officer. We are the Holocaust. 9 o'clock, Wednesday nights, lolocaust.co.uk. We don't clash with The Apprentice anymore.
Right, welcome back onto our first review. It's for Dread 3D. Now, me and Andy was having a little conversation before the show on why they decided to go with Dread 3D. Now, what did you say?
I think the reason that they've gone Dread 3D, because everywhere you see it advertised, televisions, posters, everything, is a big Dread 3D. It's not Dread available in 3D and 2D or whatever. It's just Dread 3D. And I'm sure to distance it from the awful Sylvester Stallone film from 1995 of Judge Dredd.
Yeah, I probably think, but it would be nice if it was released in more cinemas in 2D. It is getting a very limited release in 2D in some cinemas, but not that many. So my joy when I went to see it, I had to see it in 3D. Whoop-de-doo. Well, the story of the film itself, it's set in the future, where wars happened, and so the entirety of the America is completely dilapidated. I can't remember where it was from. It was from Los Angeles to California or something like that, wasn't it? It was something like that.
I honestly can't remember now.
Well, it is being dilapidated because of war, and so the whole area now is called Mega City 1. It's where more than 800 million people live in huge, massive, tall, skyscraper-type buildings which have more than 200-300 floors and dilapidated houses on the ground and stuff like that. And as you can probably guess, violence breaks out a lot in these cities because of the amount of people that live in Mega City 1. And so the police force is now known as the Judges. At the start of the film, you see the main judge, Dredd, this time played by Carl Urban. And at the start of the film, that's the only time where you see him without his helmet on, unlike with Judge Dredd, where he takes his helmet off in like the first 10 minutes of the film. He doesn't take it off at all during the rest of this movie. And so the judges are called out, well, the Dredd is called out to take down these criminals who are speeding in this van. They've been taking this drug called slow-mo. He ends up catching up with two of the criminals because they crashed the van that they're in. He chases down another one of these criminals. He takes him out in real gruesome fashion. He's then asked to come back to the main police station area, where he's told that he's got to team up with... he's got to look after a rookie who's been brought into the ranks. She's a mutant who has these powers where she can read people's minds. Anderson, played by Olivia Thirlby. Yep, Thirlby. So he takes her under a wing as sort of like a trial to see how well she can handle herself as being a judge. They are both then called out to a huge, massive tower block called Peach Trees, where character Marmar lives, played by Lena Headey, where they arrest a person in this block and then find out that he might know something to do with this block, because obviously Mama is in this block, and he holds some information that could help them take down Mama, because she's responsible for a hell of a lot of bad business, let's just say, in Mega City 1. They're just about to exit this block when Mama comes on the tannoy. Here's a clip.
Peach trees.
This is Mama. Somewhere in this block are two judges. I want him dead. Until I get what I want, the block is locked down. All clan, every level. Not the judges down.
Everyone else clear the corridors and stay out of our way until the shooting stops.
If I hear of anyone helping the judges, I will kill them in the next generation of their family. As for the judges,
You better move.
sit tight or run.
Makes no difference, you're mine.
And thanks to Mr. Moobs on the live chat, it's Boston to Washington. Shows you how much I was actually paying attention. And so the rest of the film is these judges are actually trapped inside Peach Trees. They need to try and get out of there because everybody in this block has been told by Mama to kill them in the style of the film The Raid. Even though I think this... Was The Raid in development before this one, or was this in development before The Raid?
This has reportedly been in progress since at least 2006. And Alex Garland was working on the script back then. So from what I understand, this had the idea first. Unfortunately, just The Raid has done it quicker. Yeah,
so the film itself, now, I'm going to initially start off with the fact that the 3D is awful. It's completely pointless. It did not... I think it's retrofitted into 3D, isn't it? It's been retro done into 3D. It hasn't been properly shot in 3D.
Yeah, I mean, if I can just chime on that as well, I someone who is a supporter of 3D, the 3D wasn't necessary in the film at all. There are, I think, 2 shots in the film that I sort of went, oh, that was good. But then the rest of it was literally like, nah, no point. No, there's unnecessary because of another aspect, which I'm sure you'll get to in just a moment.
Yeah, so the 3D is completely, in my eyes, completely pointless. Now, the best thing about this movie is what was lacking from the original. This is extremely violent. Now, the original did have its violence. There was some violent scenes in it. But this one went beyond the original on the violence because Dredd is a very dark and brooding character. You don't see very many emotions on Dredd's face apart from the look of anger. Actually, he looks like he's got trapped wind in my eyes. But I know, but he has got a he's got a look of anger on his face, of what you can see of his face, and he's a really brooding character, and that's what Dredd is meant to be. And Alex Garland, who wrote the script for this, and Pete Travers, who directed it, has got Dredd spot on. And you've got to give it to Carl Urban. He plays Dredd brilliantly, and so the film itself is violent, and it needed the violence. Again, a pet peeve of mine is the CGI blood. Just stop doing CGI blood, please. Now, I'm guessing the element of 3D that you were hinting on that you thought was decent was the slow-mo stuff. The slow-mo is the drug, and so are the glass.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really so much that one, but there was a couple of scenes. There was a shot when you see Anderson standing in the bottom of Peachtree's, because Peachtree's, for anyone who hasn't seen it or anything, the tower block is like a hollow big tower, and so the centre of it is like kind of like a court, and it goes all the way up to the ceiling, and so it's just a hollowed out building, and there's a shot there's a camera shot that goes right from the very top all the way down to the bottom, and it's just a brilliant. There's a couple of shots there's like that, and there's another point of view shot of someone else when it's at the very start, so it's not a spoiler thing, but some other sort of dealers that are on Marmar's turf are being thrown out the window, and one of them's given slow-mo and thrown out the window thrown out of that top floor, and you just get the slow-mo effect and the falling, and the way that the depth did look from falling down in that, I almost got sort of a sense of nausea, but not bad nausea. It was just like, oh, that was good, and got the blood pumping. And I mean, there was those couple of shots in it where the 3D was really good, and then after that, nothing for the rest of the film. It was just wasted.
Well, another thing that got on my nerves was the amount of times that slow-mo was actually used in the film itself. It was used a bit too much in my eyes, but overall, the film it really does do Judge... Sorry, losing my voice there. It really does Judge Dredd justice. Pardon the pun there, but it definitely does, because I'm thinking that when people were waiting for the Judge Dredd film to come out, the original Judge Dredd one with Sylvester Stallone, they were big fans of the comic book, and like I've said with the book itself, it is pretty graphic. And so they were waiting for that, and they were highly disappointed. The fact that it felt more like a pastiche, more like a cartoon, a live-action cartoon, rather than what they were expecting. This really does it justice. The fact that he is really brooding, it's really violent. It's a very entertaining film, and I wanted to go and see a film where it was brain dead, because you don't need to think about much of this film, but it's violence and it works, and I liked it.
I'm in the same bag. I really enjoyed it. I really do want to go and see it again, and it's a thing of that. I mean, because I can remember going to see the original Judge Dredd, the '95 Judge Dredd. And just the almost disgust that everyone had walking out at the end of it, and this one, it was literally just a great thing. The only thing I will say is that I heard someone talking with someone else about the slow-mo, which for me, I didn't have a problem with it, because they did use it. It was used as an actual story point, but when it was used, a lot of the time it was used and it wasn't dwelled on for like a whole long sequence. It could have been. It started off in that, and then it ramped up to normal speed, and everything went on, and then it might have jumped back to it. There's a scene where Dredd storms a room, and half the people in the room are on slow mo. So it cuts to their view, which is in slow motion, and then cuts to Dredd in normal speed, firing his gun a couple of times, rapid fire, and then cuts back to the slow mo, and you see the effects of the bullets. Like you see in the trailers, and there's a clip you can see uncut online where you actually see a shot of like a guy gets a bullet, goes through his cheek, and just it's in slow motion for that. It's that kind of graphic thing. And the thing I found that it really did for me is it gave me a sense of it being like a motion comic. It's the closest I've had to a sort of a live comic on the screen feel, which I was really impressed with.
So overall, it is actually a really good film, and you should go to see it if you are 18, because this definitely does deserve the 18 rated certificate.
Yeah, it is excessively violent and gory and just gruesome, but not. It's handled well. It's directed well. Pete Travis has done. He doesn't abuse that. He uses it for what it's needed, and that's it. Which I really must applaud.
Right, next review.
Lawless, which is directed by John Hillcoat, is based on a book which is supposedly based on true events that happened in the 1930s. I don't have the name of the book, unfortunately, here with me, but it's based on a book by Matt Bondurant, who is the grandson of Jack Bondurant, who in the film is played by Shia LaBeouf. Him and his two brothers, Forrest Bondurant, played by Tom Hardy, and Howard, played by Jason Clarke. The three of them are essentially in the 1930s bootleggers that are making moonshine and selling it in Prohibition. They're out in sort of the countryside. There's this whole thing of the countryside way where everyone, even the sheriff, they drive along with a truck, and the sheriff's like, should be arresting them, but instead he buys hooch off them and just lets them go on their way, and they drive along. They're basically like an ice cream truck delivering hooch along to everyone instead of delivering ice cream. Things all seem to be going fine for them and sort of normal until one day the sheriff turns up with a new deputy who is from the country, from the city. He's from Chicago, a guy named Charlie Rakes, who's played by Guy Pearce, who seems to be sort of interested in them in particular and interested in trying to sort of struggle in on their business to take over things from them. And eventually at one point leads to a time where he's attacks Jack, beats him up quite severely and leaves him almost for dead. Here's a clip.
Here it is. As long as you are my brother, you will never let this happen again. Do you understand? I don't think you do. What if I can't? I'm not built like you, Howard. I ain't never been like you. It's all right. Jack, it is not the violence that sets a man apart. All right, it is the distance that he is prepared to go. Jack, look at me. We are survivors. We control the fear. And without the fear, we are all as good as dead.
So the whole thing ends up sort of building into this thing of them carrying on with the bootlegging, even though the law is now looking for them, and this guy who may be the law, may be some other kind of sort of organised crime boss or relation, starts sort of digging into their business and essentially starts becoming almost a sort of a unofficial war. At the same time, there's this ongoing thing of that you have Jessica Chastain comes into the film as a woman who sort of mysteriously turns up at their sort of a station that they've got and offers herself to work there for a job that they're looking for someone to help out in a sort of diner area. You have Mia Wasikowska playing a daughter of a local church leader who Jack is attracted to and tries to sort of woo her over. There's this this ongoing thing as well. If they have Gary Oldman in it as another sort of gangster leader and smuggler of hooch, who Jack makes a deal with and starts to sort of use him as the dealer and them as the supplier of hooch. The thing is that with Lawless, it's got some really good performances in it. I'll even go as far as to say Shia LaBeouf is decent in the film as well. I'm not a big fan of his because pretty much everything he's been in has been awful, and especially Transformers is the large thing. You've got Tom Hardy giving a really good but odd performance. I mean, there's a lot of the time you hear him in the film. You heard him in that clip there as well. Someone will say something to him, and instead of saying yeah or no, he just sort of goes, and just sort of like weakly grunts.
It's the kind of thing that I do when somebody asks me something and I go meh.
Yeah, but his is more like it's
like he can't be bothered.
Yeah, exactly. You have Jason Clarke in there, who I've only ever seen in the TV series The Chicago Code before, and he's really good in this as well. He's a bit of the crazy, mad older brother who will take on anyone in a fight kind of thing. And Guy Pearce is, though, the standout one in this. Guy Pearce is this really weird, creepy thing and a bizarre haircut as well. But it's all looking the style of the 1930s. And all. Gary Oldman, unfortunately, isn't in the film that much. Jessica Chastain and Mia Wasikowska?
Yeah,
I don't
Wasikowska.
know. The thing is with the two of them is that they're these two female characters who are supposed to have this pull on these men, and unfortunately they're not particularly strong characters in the films.
I was going to ask you that the fact that I did read that the female roles in this film are very weak.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially comparing this to Dredd, which I saw the two of these on the same day, and I know I'm going back to Dredd here, but in Dredd you have two female characters and one male character are the main thing, and the female characters in that are both fairly strong, above average for a film. In this, the two, unfortunately, are side down. They're particularly weak. I mean, Jessica Chastain is the stronger of the two, but she's just not given a lot to work with. The film is also rated 18, like Dredd, although not anywhere near as violent or graphic as that. There are some scenes that are quite shocking and grim, and there's a lot of sort of the shootout scenes that you have. One thing I will say about this is that it had a feeling almost like it was a Western in a sort of country setting, which I didn't have any problem with that. I kind of liked that, but it needed more to it. It's a bit unfulfilling. And also towards the end, without giving things away, because it's based on a book supposedly on true events, so you can't sort of guffaw it for that. But at the end, there are certain things happen that the audience I was in, they sort of laughed in disbelief at the end of certain things that happened. And it's also the fact you've got Shia LaBeouf, as I say, he's good in the film, but I don't necessarily think he should have been in this for the lead character, because his character is the one that's essentially telling the story. And it's not a bad film. It's just I didn't connect with it as much as it should have. I struggled with it. It does take a while to get where it's going. The running time on it isn't 2 hours. It's 116 minutes, so it's just short of that. But it feels longer, and not in a good way. It feels like it could have been easily 10, 15, 20 minutes shorter and been better. And again, the thing of unfortunately having a lot of big actors, like I said, Gary Oldman is in it, but not very much. And sort of actors in it that are unfortunately sort of kind of wasted. But it's a good effort. It's not a bad film. It's not a rubbish film. It's not by no marks a really bad film. It's just a really disconnected and not entirely successful film.
It's by the sense of it, it sounds like it's a step in the wrong direction for John Hillcoat, considering he did The Road, which I really liked. The Road. I
didn't like The Road so much, I have to say. I wasn't a fan of The Road. There's the other film he did before, which I liked, which was the Proposition, which this does feel like, because it does have that sort of West feel. That sort of, I know the proposition wasn't a Western, but it was a Western sort of, if you get my meaning. Yeah. It has that feel to it. So it's more, I think, more in the right direction for John Hillcott as a director.
To me, it sounds like it's in the wrong direction. Considering I really did like The Road, so I'm on the opposite end with you when it comes to The Road. I think The Road is it's a bleak film, but it's brilliantly made. I really liked it.
I mean, it is these things of the characters in this, and certain things happen where there are events that happen to certain characters, and something happens, and you should be sort of following that character to find out what happened. And instead, it just cuts away and then cuts to later with that character, and you find out what happened. Whereas I would have loved to have seen what happened. I get that may be because it's based on a book, and it may not be that character is telling the story, but it's just that's what's missing.
Yeah. Well, that's it for the cinema part of the show. We'll be back in a moment on Spreaker live with the Blu-ray and DVD part of the show. If you listen to this on iTunes, please leave us a rating or a comment. Again, same thing with YouTube. We would like if you leave a comment on YouTube, because we've had no comments for any of the episodes yet, and it'd be nice to read them. So leave a comment for us on YouTube, but make sure, if you listen to us live on Spreaker, to come back in a moment for the Blu-ray and DVD part of the show.